Vi är spelskaparna.
So, welcome to Spelskaparna, the podcast about the people behind the games. And the guest today is Jaan Tallinn, the founding engineer of Skype and Kazaa. And for the last decade, Jaan have put a lot of work into preventing the potential danger of AI and other existential risks. For example, Jaan has co-founded the Center of the Study of Existential Risk and the Future of Life Institute. You're also an investor, and last but not least, a former game developer behind games such as Skyroads. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start off with one question, and that is, you grew up in Estonia when it was still part of the Soviet Union. How did you come about learning programming in that kind of environment?
Yeah, so don't remember exactly how it begun, but I do remember that my father used to visit Finland every once in a while, which was pretty rare back then. He worked for the state TV, and every once in a while he brought back magazines, including computer magazines. I found them like super fascinating. So that must have been the first exposure to that. But my actual first programs are run on a big mainframe in some Soviet-style computing center in Tallinn, because some of my schoolmates had a father who used to run like a computing center in the communication ministry. So he kind of arranged some schoolboys to come and experiment with those computers in the evening.
Is that where you learned how to program?
Yeah, I think so. At least that was my first kind of live programs. Yeah, I don't think I was doing much before that.
Did you get a chance to play any games yourself?
A little bit. There were like very few games on those like mainframes. In some ways I got lucky because back then computers represented mostly like this enormous potential, but they were sort of like tabula rasa. There weren't that many things that already existed. So when I see my kids trying to learn programming these days, it's just so demotivating, because like YouTube and Minecraft, they're just like one click away, and like no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to do that. Whereas like when I started on those mainframes, I saw like there were a couple of games, but they were sort of crappy, and I thought like I could do way better than that, and I did.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's kind of a paradox that it is that way, but it's about the human psychology, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one important thing is that computers have gotten like I don't know exactly, but I'm guessing roughly like 1 million times faster since I started. And I had this early on when I got into AI risk, or AI safety. I gave a talk called like surfing the Moore's law. My life has been sort of like surfing the Moore's law in the sense that every kind of major change in my life has been sort of precipitated by computers or silicon equipment in general getting more powerful. So in some ways, I kind of learned programming as the computers were learning to get faster. So it was in some ways a nice symbiosis that it's difficult to replicate these days.
That's true. But at what point did you understand that you could actually make games and make a company out of that?
Yeah, so I was in high school. It was sort of specialized high school for math and physics, and we were doing national Olympiads, math science Olympiads, where I met someone named Ahti Heinla who managed to beat me in physics because our school was very competitive. They actually recruited after he won the physics Olympiad. National Physics Olympiad, he joined our school, and so we became friends. And he had this. He basically later he became the chief technical architect of Skype, but there was a couple of decades before that, and we decided that we seem to be like a good team, interested in similar things, and he had like way more knowledge than I had in many aspects. So we decided that we should do some kind of programming project together, and one of my relatives suggested that, look, you're going to Sweden, and because I think it was our last year in high school, we managed to get sort of equivalent class in Linköping, and we kind of paid a visit to Estonia in 1989, and we paid.
You had an exchange.
Yeah, exchange basically, and my relative said like, you're trying to think about some programming projects, and you're going to Sweden, and just make something and sell it there. It's very easy. so they're like, well, what do we have to lose? So we decided to let's do some game and see like what happens if we bring that with us. Of course, like as programmers know, like things will take about 3.14 times more time than you expect them to take. So the game was not ready by our visit, but we finished it, and then we found some businessman in Estonia who was doing business with West, also with Sweden. He had Swedish colleagues, and he actually managed to sell this game to his Swedish colleagues who agreed to distribute this like unique pearl from behind the Iron Curtain. That was actually the precursor to Skyroads, called Cosmonaut.
Okay, and how do you remember how you came up with the idea behind the game?
Yeah, so there was a game that we enjoyed. It was on Yamaha MSX platform, which was very popular in Estonia and ex-Soviet countries, I guess, because there was some kind of Soviet deal with Japan, where I think it was Sony, or was it Yamaha? I don't remember. A Japanese company who was producing those 8-bit computers, and there was a game called Trailblazer, which was basically similar to Skyroads, or I should say Skyroads is similar to that, but much more simpler than Skyroads. So it was exactly another of those situations where I thought that is a really cool game. We really enjoy it, but we could do way better. So we did.
But did you have any like coming from Sweden? It seems like Soviet was very like isolated and so on. How did you get information about how to make optimizations and make the graphics and everything? Did you come up with it yourselves, or did you have any source of getting the knowledge, basically?
I think we mostly came up with it ourselves. I mean, there was a few books that we read, and Ahti had actually read Donald Knuth's The Art of Computer Programming. So he was like I said, he was like a massive like an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to like the really complex stuff. But yeah, simpler optimization, etc. We just like experimented and quickly kind of learned that, okay, in order to make those computers to do anything, you need to program them in assembler. And then we learned more and more about how computers work, which was another kind of lucky thing to be exposed to. And these days it's kind of much more rare than you get exposed to like low-level mechanics of computers.
Yeah, you were riding that wave of
more slow indeed.
More slow, yeah. So you released Cosmonaut, and what was that to like the Nordic countries, or how did that work?
I think it was just Sweden. Yeah, I think it was just this one deal that we did with Skyroads. They were like, that was like another story. That was like all over the world. But Cosmonaut, I think it was just Sweden.
Okay. And did you like get any money out of it?
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I think we made something like $10,000 out of this thing, or was it 5,000 or something like, yeah, not more than 10,000, I think. Which back then, behind the Iron Curtain, was like, it was like more than our parents had made in their lifetimes. Of course, like in nominative value, not necessarily in real value, but yeah, it was a lot of money. So we thought that, okay, making games is A, a lot of fun, and B, really profitable. So it's like, why do anything else? So we spent like 1 decade doing games.
But wasn't that a problem that you got so much money? I mean, was the state okay with that?
State didn't know much about it. This was like wild west yeah, I mean, like which state? Like Soviet Union was just like pulling out of Estonia, and yeah, it was just like used cash bills in different currencies that we carried around in our pockets. There wasn't much.
So what did you do with all of that money then?
Different things. I think the main thing that we did was actually we bought, I and Ahti bought a computer, like a proper top of the line PC, which were really expensive back then, actually, especially compared to other things. So I think we spent like several $1,000 just on top of the line 286 computer. Yeah, our artist bought his first car, I think a used car, for his a few $100 or $1,000. Yeah, so it was good times.
But eventually, you made some more games. You said that you worked with it for a decade.
Yes, after we ended up selling Skyroads, we thought that, or actually, sorry, the Cosmonaut, we thought that, okay, now we really should kind of turn this into a proper business. And it was just like our first year of university. So we kind of had freshly become adults and thought that, okay, let's do this adult thing called companies, which had recently become legal in Estonia. And yeah, so I ended up like running a games company for 10 years.
And maybe we should mention for the ones who doesn't know about Cosmonaut or Skyroads, what's the game about? Could you describe it briefly?
Yeah, so it's like a surreal road in the sky or road in space scenario where you're kind of like supposedly somewhere high above different planets, and you have like this road to navigate that where you have to kind of gather speed in order to not stall, and you have to avoid obstacles, jump over them, and go through them, etc. And it was really, really hard. So you will crash like every 10 seconds or so. But the good thing was that there were unlimited lives. So like if you crashed, you just like get to do it again. And if you like repeat it like many times, you eventually just manage to do things. And also there was this. We still get like fan mail from kind of ex-Skyroads fans, and one aspect that I really liked was the music, and the music really kind of is like sort of hypnotic ambient track that if you like do this repetitive thing and listen to this music, you will get into like trance-like state.
That's true.
And many people kind of really loved it, including myself. Really loved it. So it's like hard repetitive thing where you basically get into this different state of mind.
For me, I also remember that it was maybe the first time I experienced in a video game setting that you play with gravity. So like different courses have different gravity, which affects the gameplay and the feel and all of that.
Yeah. We kind of like thought about like what are the, like I said, our prototype was this Trailblazer game for Yamaha MSX. And it already had some parameters, but then we thought like, okay, like we can do better. So let's have more different buildings, and let's have more parameters that we can play with. And then we just like thought, what are the easier things to do? And yeah, gravity was one of those things.
And Skyroads, which was like a improved version of Cosmonaut, that was even more successful.
Yeah, so it was the road was definitely way more bumpy because first we made this game and tried to use the same channel, but I guess like the like $5,000 or something wasn't that big money in Sweden. So the distributors weren't that enthusiastic about doing a follow-up. And so we actually kind of went back to square one and thought, okay, now we have this game and we need to, how do we actually sell it? But that was the time of Wolfenstein and I think Doom wasn't out yet. It was like early 90s. But yeah, there was this Apogee software that just pioneered this shareware model, and he thought that okay, that looks really obvious thing to do. So we made it shareware. Then we had this problem: how do we distribute it? And like there was pre-internet time, but there were BBSs all over the world. So we needed to figure out a way how to make expensive phone calls. International phone calls to the foreign BBSs in order to distribute our shareware package, and then like we managed to do that from the like a government building because like one of our good friends worked there as a sysup. So while he was playing like Mood multi-user dungeons, we were just like doing lots of phone calls to BBSs and uploading, and then nothing happened for like half a year or something. And then the like envelopes started arriving from like all over the world, really, and it was really fun. Like every time I go to this BBS box was like, or a PO box. Open like, is there something? Yes, there is, which was really cool.
Because the shareware business model was that you got parts of it for free, and that you got information on how to send money to get the full version.
Exactly. You were given like I guess it's called freemium these days. You were given like free levels or something like that for free, and like if you wanted more, then like you had like address to send a check or cash. Like ideally cash. We love cash. Checks are like a headache. This is like a more American thing and always has been. So it was difficult, but we appreciated those as well.
But it's still complicated. You had to like handle physical cash all the time. Then I guess.
Yeah, but that was fine. We knew what to do with cash. There wasn't like a lot of it, so it was like it was good income for in Estonia in the 90s, but nothing compared to the like post Skype numbers, I would say.
But I remember first getting it from, you could buy like a pack of floppy disks, and then you got 9 empty ones and 1 disk including a game. And in one of these packs, I got a shareware version of Skyroads.
Cool. Yeah. We did work like sometimes like in this PO box, there were not like money or check. There was like a letter from a distributor, and every once in a while, yeah, we got like letters from different distributors who wanted to do like that. They wanted to like include the game with their discs or with their magazines. Or I think the most coolest and exotic thing we got was like a distributor in Taiwan who wanted to distribute like a couple of products. We already had like we already had Skyroads and then our music editor, Sound Club, and we ended up actually doing like really good deal with them, which was fun because like the communication was like over fax and telephone. So it was strange to have like this phone calls back and forth over like 5-6 time zones from like freshly independent Estonia.
But you got more money and you also expanded the team, right? It was not only you and Ahti. You were more people.
Yeah, we ended up. I mean, we expanded a little bit, not too much. I think we ended up something like 8 people in the team, and not all of them were full time. But yeah, I think it was something like 8, depending how you count, like fight rate, depending how to count the non-full timers.
Do you remember how was the working environment back then? How was it like? Like, what was the setting?
We moved different offices all the time. Had like our computers stolen from one of them. So it was a Wild West in Estonia in Wild East. I remember the most extreme experience was when because I was living in Tartu when I went to university to study physics there, and Ahti, my good partner, was already he spent like 1 year in Tartu, but went back to Tallinn, and we mostly worked late in the evening and during the night. So I think it was like 1 a.m. I was on a phone to Ahti. Again we used phone a lot, so it was just like coding while having like phone kind of stuck between your head and your shoulder. And I was like doing that, and suddenly there was like a big bang on Ahti's end. And there was like a silence. I was like, "What happened?" And like then after a while, Ahti was like, "Looks like a car blew up here."
What?
So yeah, that was Estonia was pretty wild in the 90s.
But you continue to make money by releasing new games, and or how did it work?
Yeah, so we did some kind of contract work, like developed like text editor. I remember for the same guy who helped our distribution in Sweden. He wanted something for like for Estonian market, so that like computers are getting. I don't actually know how well he did with this, but like we got our royalties from it or our contract fee. And at some point, we started developing this music editor called SoundCloud, where we saw. I mean, we already were exposed to this like demo scene with their kind of big gatherings in Finland, and even though we were not part of it, we kind of like heavily followed it and looked at the codes and looked at the demos and saw that there's this way of making music called trackers, and we thought that okay, I think we can do better. so we did. We made SoundCloud that was like sort of in its heart it was a tracker, but it has what we thought at least, and many other people thought, like way better UI. It had like a proper graphical UI and had like a more intuitive. It was kind of less technical than the trackers were. It turned also be like pretty popular. I remember, and of course, like in Estonia at least, everyone just pirated it. And I remember I was at my university computer class in Tartu, and some people were kind of composing this, composing music using SoundCloud. I was just standing behind them as like, said like, I wrote this software. Get away.
Yeah, that's fun. Did like Skyroads spread as well in Estonia, or was it just outside?
Yeah, that was like, I don't think we got any money from Estonia, but sure, like there were many Skyroads copies distributed in Estonia as well. And but yeah, I think the Skyroads, the really interesting thing was how much I kind of learned about international software business just because of Skyroads, like, and all the connections I made. We had like great distributor in Germany that I ended up actually visiting in '96, I remember. And yeah, he basically ended up like selling many of our products in Germany. And also another thing, like what I learned was how do you kind of maintain relationships in a situation where you can't really rely on the sort of courts and law. If the other, like basically the idea is that you have to always maintain the expectation that the relationship with you is more valuable in the future. So like, and we were a good group that is like whose software is getting better and better. We were learning in the progress, etc. So instead of like just kind of, there was no point in threatening. Like if the other party, other business, like if the party to your contract didn't pay, you couldn't just. It was pointless to just say that like, look, we're going to go to court. Like nobody's going to believe that. You should say that like, look, we really need this payment for XY because like we have agreed it, etc. And by the way, we have this other project in the pipeline, which usually was true. And then we were developing better and better stuff. So it was, but it was an interesting experiencing kind of game theory, I would say.
So they don't miss out on like future things that you make, basically.
They're still in every relationship, like, and I think that's a general point. There are like kind of levers that are under your control, even if there's no external enforcement of the rules.
But were you making games mainly because of you thought this was lucrative, or was it because like you really liked games?
It was really both. Like I said, we got this kickstart because like it seemed to be like the most interesting thing and the most profitable thing to do. I mean, that turned out to be like less rosy in the end. But yeah, kind of turning games into money was much harder than the first one in the end. But like we kind of continued to progress and had like bigger and bigger deals with different publishers. And I think our peak was the year 98, where we managed to get a publishing deal with American publisher called Interactive Magic, which was like a sort of spin-off or co-founded by the same guy who founded Microprose. So like that, yeah. And that was a great experience. Just kind of work with US publishers back and forth, and I think we ended up being the only team who delivered by Christmas. Which like A, we were very proud of that, and the publisher was very happy about that. But B, because we were the only team, the publisher went bankrupt next year. So like 99 was kind of the end of our games business once Interactive Magic went bankrupt, and then we were okay. Nice. Like now we had to do this, like finding a publisher all over again, and that was we saw like games became being bigger and bigger, and it was harder and harder to sell them because the projects were like, ended up bigger than movies in terms of budgets and taking longer than budgets and having like less time to recoup the costs than movies. So it was very, very difficult.
And what game was that? The last game you made?
The last game was named Thunder Brigade. That was just like name that it was tacked in the end. I think during the development they called it Grav Armor. It was kind of space themed game again, where we had with this really cool voxel graphics engine. I remember when we were looking for a publisher, we did like a couple of tours in UK, and our pitch was to just go to the office of like Electronic Arts or what other. Yeah, we went to like many Ocean, etc. And just go there and put the CD in the computer and let it play, and then just like sit back and watch what's gonna happen. And usually the like junior guys who were assigned to host us, they were like, I have to call my boss. I'll be right back. So that was good. So yeah, we had like really, really nice voxel engine. Unfortunately, it wasn't graphics accelerated, and the graphics accelerators just kind of appeared on the market. So it was kind of like, in some ways, it was great as a piece of technology, but it wasn't riding the correct trend. So it was really good as a technology demonstration in like 97. But when we actually ended up doing a publishing deal based on that, and the voxel engine was used to just render like multiple planets, like planet landscapes. And then you had this anti-gravity tanks that you had to, like, or tank platoons, etc., that you had to either drive or lead in different battles for like planetary supremacy. So it was like a live action game. But yeah, it was really good graphics in 97. But when we released it in 98, it was like only so because the graphics cards had just completely changed the expectations of people.
So after you had to give up gaming, is this when you meet Niklas Sennström?
Exactly. So when our game publisher went bankrupt in 99 and stopped doing like milestone payments, like in 98 they made like immediately, once we delivered our gold disc, it was called, you had to deliver a gold disc for publishing. They kind of immediately, like next day, they offered a new contract, a bigger contract, a better contract. We were like very happy for a new game, and we started doing that new game. But like in March or something, they started missing their milestone payments, and and I think by April or something, it was clear that okay, this is not going to work. We need some alternative. And then we found that there was a newspaper ad where they were promising like ridiculous amounts of salaries to just find competent programmers. And the background was that Tele2 and MTG Group, they had this joint project called everyday.com in Sweden and Scandinavia in general. And they had kind of promised to stock market in 99 that they're going to deliver something in 2000. I mean, it was .com boom, so every kind of respectable company had to have their own internet portal in order to double the stock price.
Of course.
So, or was it like in 98 they had promised and to deliver 99? Anyway, the deadline that they had promised had kind of come closer. And meanwhile, they had, I think Tele2 had acquired a web development shop in Estonia. And they basically suggested that somebody there suggested that why don't we like run a like really ridiculous ad to attract like top talent. And then our response was that, this is like we are in serious need of cash. Main business is running out, and our runway is ending, and we need. And there's like this ad that's kind of exactly the right thing that we need, except that this lists like a long list of technologies that we never had heard about, and requires to have experience of those technologies. But then it was Friday. And the deadline was on Monday. I thought, okay, let's get experience with those. So we had like really intense weekend where we were learning about all these like newfangled web technologies, PHP and databases and email protocols, etc., etc. And by Monday morning, we had managed to actually develop a prototype of an internet portal that basically satisfied all the points that were listed in the ad. That like, look, we're going to we're planning to develop a portal that has those features, and every one of those features our prototype portal had. So we went we just like submitted this URL with like short description to this as a response to this ad, and when we went to interview, we had this dilemma also because we were a games developing company, this portal looked amazing because we had 3D artists, etc., on payroll. so it was super professional. And then we had this dilemma, are we going to mention that this thing was developed over a weekend or not? It definitely looked like really serious project. And yeah, that's how we. I think Niklas ended up just looking at this at some point and going okay, these guys are good. And from that on, that's how we. Actually, during the Tele2 times, we never met Niklas. We were in email correspondence frequently. There's still, I think I have some email from Niklas still somewhere, where we were in the late night in development. And we needed we're changing some text or something, and we needed Swedish translations for them. And Niklas was he was the CEO of Everyday.com, And then I remember like sending an email to him and okay, we need like Swedish translations to those things. And then like response comes like after a half an hour or so. It's like with the translations and like signed at like midnight translation services by Niklas.
Okay, you did that work. But I mean, this story about you learning PHP and web development in a weekend, it says a lot about your team, but it also said something about the hysteria about web during this bubble days.
It's a massive bubble, and one thing that actually ended up happening was that we worked on this for about a year, but then Niklas and Janus Friis, they got restless and wanted to do their own thing, and asked us, the Bluemoon guys, along with them. But around that time, also there was this push to kind of replace this. There's this English term that I'm forgetting. Something that's just like kind of developed by in Garage with some proper web scale technologies. And so there was a company that in the US that was contracted, and they flew in consultants and how to do like a web portal, in industrial scale web portal, and they ended up developing this for a year or two, and spending like tens of millions of Swedish crowns on this. And at the end, they just like rolled everything back and went back to this kind of technology.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. But so next up was Kazaa, I guess.
The first thing that Niklas and Janus, the idea they had was to develop web portal that actually was like, the idea was very, very similar to what Yelp is now. It was called consumer empowerment, and it was based in Holland already. I think they lived in Holland, or at least Niklas was living in Holland. And I think Janus was living in Niklas's living room. Proper like scrappy startup. And I think Ahti paid them visit in early 2000. And the idea was to do something where kind of consumers could kind of band together and kind of review stuff and also get discounts. So I guess it's like a mixture between Groupon and Yelp. And today, like because it was like still like early 2000, like they were kind of very bullish in finding investors. But well, then March 2000 happened, and the .com boom just vanished. So they went back to Niklas and Janus went back to the drawing board and said that, okay, what can we do with our own money? And then they looked, wait, there's this Napster thing happening, and all of this. And then they discussed with Ahti, who did like more research, what's happening in this file sharing scene, and found that, okay, there's this Napster, which is scalable but legally vulnerable, and it has this competitor called Nutella, which is like legally robust but not technically scalable. Perhaps we can do better.
I remember when I was like in high school, Kazaa was the biggest thing, like sharing MP3s and songs and so on.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but at some point at peak, I heard the number. Somebody was estimating that Kazaa accounted for like 60% of internet traffic. I think it's possible. I don't know if it's true, but
yeah, but that's crazy. But why do you think? I mean, this was, as you said, Napster was already around. There were other file sharing solutions as well. How did you end up being the biggest one during this time?
Oh, simple. Like I said, Napster was scalable, popular, but legally vulnerable. So it was centralized servers. So like if you pull the plug, the system goes down. Then Nutella, which was the other one, which they didn't have centralized servers. They were peer-to-peer, but they were like two peer-to-peer. So you couldn't couldn't scale this thing. Like the search was slow and the selection wasn't big enough, etc. So we decided to do something that is kind of that is not centralized in order to be not legally vulnerable, but it had like 2-layer network topology or network architecture that we ended up actually kind of doing a similar one in Skype, where it had like this more powerful nodes coordinating ones that are below. So and what happened was the Napster got shut down. Like yes, they were the most popular option there, but then like suddenly overnight they weren't. So there were like this lot of hungry users. Users were hungry for content that they couldn't really get properly anywhere other than just walking to a store and doing this thing that we like almost nobody does these days. And they looked at, okay, Nutella, what alternatives there are, and Kazaa was the best alternative.
And I guess like one big reason for it to work was that you were able to invent that type of network topology that would solve this situation, which your team was so good, so you could actually manage to do that. Yeah,
like I because we worked on this like several years, and then went on working on peer-to-peer in Skype. I do think that Tallinn happened to have like a significant fraction of the world's peer-to-peer knowledge, which was kind of cool.
Did you ever, because Kazaa was kind of a murky software, since you said it was legally solid, but still, I mean, it was used for transferring copyrighted material and so on.
Yeah, there was like a lot of legal, yeah.
Did you get any problem personally because of this?
A little bit. Like, I mean, the main thing was that the entire company turned from technical project into a legal project. So there were many implications. I would say the biggest implication actually was that because Kazaa, we started developing next version of Kazaa that the world never actually got to enjoy, which is unfortunate because it was really cool. And then we started developing this technology, and we were very enthusiastic how good it's going to be. But then like the company were just kind of suffocated under lawsuits, and they didn't have any time to do anything else than just fight lawsuits. So we got this kind of, suddenly we were sitting on top of a technology, and I remember we were kind of sitting. Actually, I might be mixing up things. Anyway, we were in discussion with Niklas and Jaanus. So what do we do with technology now that looks like Kazaa isn't really in a good shape to actually start using it? And that was like one of the factors that went into that. Okay, let's do like a peer-to-peer telephony. Although there were other considerations. I remember Toivo, the guy, another kind of Estonian co-founder who ended up running the engineering office in Tallinn. He did like a very serious market research when it came to voice over IP technologies out there. And I still have the email. He basically concludes that, look, none of them work. Like perhaps there's an opportunity here.
Okay. So he saw that this was the way to go forward, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was like a collaborative discussion. We had like actually the reason Skype is called Skype was that it comes from sky peer. You have like a peers in the sky, or like friends in the sky can connect you. But the first idea of connection was that there would be Wi-Fi sharing, like this. I think Spanish phone is doing. Where you can share out your Wi-Fi, or at least was doing. I'm not sure what's up with them. You can share out your Wi-Fi, and then you're gonna create this peer-to-peer internet, basically. And then we thought that, like, okay, on top of this peer-to-peer thing that we're going to develop using our peer-to-peer technology, we still need to provide some services. And the most common, the typical situation with like ISPs, where they offered was called triple play. So you got telephone, you got internet, and you got TV. So we thought, okay, internet, that's what we're going to providing by default by this like Wi-Fi sharing Skype network. And TV would be difficult given all the content owners are in like we are meeting them mostly in courtrooms, and then we thought, okay, that leaves telephony. So let's see, let's evaluate what existing voice over IP technologies are there out there, and Toivo did just that and found that yep, there are a bunch of those, but none of them really work. So at that point we decided, okay, let's just focus on this. Let's forget about this Wi-Fi thing and just focus on this fixing the telephony.
But like during the entire Skype period, which we are going into now, like, I guess you worked with a lot of different stuff and have had a lot of different positions. What was your favorite position and favorite like assignments?
I mean, I think it was like all really interesting because you got to experience like massive kind of technical problems. Like one interesting thing about Skype, I mean, it was experiencing kind of exponential growth. Like I remember doing like early just plotting on a log scale, like how many users Skype will have, and it was like after we launched in a few weeks, it was like perfectly exponential. So I calculated, okay, by late 2003 or early 2004, we're going to run out of people on this planet. So we need to get users from other planets. Then the growth slowed down a bit, but not much. So there was constant kind of a struggle to maintain the network, etc. I remember one thing. I still have like a couple of hours of video footage from this crisis where we were kind of very smug about centralized networks. They were like down every once in a while. And we also struggled with our Skype to phone service, which was mostly centralized, so like calling to landlines. But the rest of it was peer-to-peer. So like we thought there's nothing to worry about. And then in August, I think, 2007, Skype network went down. I was like, what the hell is that? And that was like a great lesson. I mean, I could speak a long time about it, but it was, so yeah, like it was very humiliating moment where you saw that peer-to-peer can go down in a way that's like way harder to recover.
Yeah, that sounds almost impossible, but there are.
But roughly what happened was that you have this peer-to-peer network and you had like traffic multiplication. So like whenever there was a particular situation where like one user sent a packet to another one, there was like a bug or like something that we didn't think about that caused like multiple packets being sent from the target node. So there was like a massive amplification of traffic.
Okay.
So like the most hilarious thing I remember was that when Ahti, the chief technical architect, started to investigate what's happening in Skype. He compiled a special version of Skype, plugged it into network, and then it wasn't the program that crashed. It wasn't his computer that crashed. It was his internet service provider that crashed. So he was like on a phone. Okay, looks like I have to come to the office because my home ISP is now down. So there was just like a massive storm of traffic because of our bug.
Oh, that's crazy. But I mean, this was also a big thing, not only for you, but for like Estonia in general. There was.
I do think like a big factor in current. I mean, Estonia is doing really well in terms of startup scene these days, and like I think Skype has been like a really big factor in many ways. Like one is that it just gave training to a lot of people. Like Skype's biggest office was in Estonia. I don't know what's the situation currently, but yeah. For a decade, Skype was the really big tech employer in Estonia, getting like training people in terms of what it means to be in a startup situation. And then when Skype was sold, it brought a bunch of investments. And finally, I would say it kind of like gave a good example because like in Estonia, small people know each other. So like they don't. Oh, I went to like high school with those guys. If those guys can do it, I can as well. Morale booster.
The psychology again. But when you made the exit and you got like a lot of money, how did that affect your own life?
Yeah, I even have given like one talk about it in New York in 2011. Yeah, it did feel like end of like a railroad, because like I even had this slide in my talk, like, okay, this is where the road ends, because like there's no obvious thing what the next step is. Out of the 4 co-founding engineers of Skype in Estonia, we have done actually 4 different things. Like if you think about it, there are like four. I can only think of 4 different things that one can do with their life once they have achieved the point where they no longer have to do anything. Like one is become like a serial entrepreneur, which Ahti, the technical architect, has done. He's running the company called Starship, which is doing probably most advanced company in the world doing delivery robots. Then Toivo, he became professional investor. He just like spends all his time looking at startups and doing deals, etc., etc. Then Preet, third guy, he retired. He's like raising family and dealing with his different hobbies. And myself, I became a philanthropist, basically, trying to figure out what are the things that the economy isn't providing, and how can basically I do maximize the amount of good that I do in the world. There's like a whole movement called effective altruism that thinks about it. So I became part of effective altruism movement, and I've been doing philanthropy, trying to optimize my philanthropy.
And that you're doing that it's something that comes from you thinking about this, or actually, because usually among regular people you get this question: what would you do if you had $100 million or something like that? But you have had to experience this, and your answer is philanthropy. And this is
philanthropy, but more specifically, philanthropy that doesn't just try to maximize the good feeling that you get, but actually the good change in the world, maximizes the good change in the world, and that they're surprisingly different. Because like human, and I in the same talk in New York in 2011, I basically talked about this. There's like a surprisingly, I mean, most of the philanthropy in the world is just bullshit. It's not doing any change in the world. It's just empty mechanisms.
You mean it's very short term? You put food on the table for one family, and that's it. Like
or even worse. Like sometimes you're not even like doing anything other than just I don't know, having lots of people. I mean, yes, you're putting food on the table of your employees, or doing philanthropy, or something that looks like philanthropy to you, or to public or whatnot. I mean, there's like a lot of discussion about how to do better than the default in the movement. Effective altruism movement.
You have been part of founding different institutes and stuff, working with these kinds of questions in Cambridge and in Boston, right? And how can you know that they are doing job that will be better than other philanthropical institutions?
In the effective altruism movement, there are kind of like 2 schools of thought, and they are in kind of friendly symbiosis / competition. So one school of thought is that we have to be very metric driven. So like we have to measure everything. As we kind of do philanthropy, we should have like do like random controlled trials, etc. Just the counterfactual impact of this giving is, and then you get like anyway. GiveWell is an organization that is kind of evaluating charities like that. I got unfortunately to forget. Basically, it's a charity that just gives directly money to poor people in Africa, etc., and see like how their life changes as a result, and they can measure that, etc. So it's like very thorough. And then there's the other school of thought, which I'm part of, and I'm like very sympathetic to the first one as well. Like I'm an engineer, I really like things being measured. The other school of thought is that, okay, look, a bunch of the stuff we cannot measure. How can we maximize the impact, the expected positive impact from the stuff that we cannot measure? Once we loosen this constraint that we have to measure everything, there's like a wider palette of things that we could be doing. So within that palette, how can we do the things that have a maximum impact? And there's this like criteria, like 3 criteria that in general effective altruism looks at. One is called importance, like how important is this kind of domain that we're addressing. Like you can measure importance in terms of like expected life saved, for example, or in any other way. As long as it's kind of like you have some idea how do you measure the importance. Second is how neglected this is. How many people are already working on this? So what would you expect the marginal impact of your contribution would be? And the third one is how tractable this thing is. Like how much do you expect this field to yield if you push? So and according to those things, when you try to maximize things, a lot of people in effective altruism movement, including myself, even though I didn't like exactly follow the same logic, end up in kind of long-term risks and existential risks, which is like Martin Rees, my co-founder at the Cambridge Institute, he says that like there's a difference between killing 90% of people and killing 100% of people on this planet, and the difference is not 10%. So it's like the idea is that if this existential risk event that wipes out everyone, it means that like no one gets a chance to be born in the future. So there is no recovery from a materialized existential risk. So that's why it's really important. Second, it's is it neglected? Like 10 years ago when I started on this, like it was like almost entirely neglected. There was like some work on natural existential risk, like asteroid impacts, but technological existential risk were just like almost nobody was working on them. Very few people. There still are like there's like been massive growth, but still there's like way more room for more people working on this. And is it tractable? Yeah, I would argue it is. I think it's technological existential risks. The things that I'm working on AI, for example, I think they're more tractable than global warming, for example, because there are fewer players whose decisions kind of are going to influence the future there. Whereas in global warming, like there are like literally like billions of people whose decisions are making like a small contribution.
Yeah, and you have really been part of making the exposure of AI as a potential risk for the last 10 years, I must say.
When I got into this in 2008, 2009, like I kind of first thing was like evaluate, okay, what can I bring to this discussion? And one thing that I could do was using my kind of brand as co-founder of Skype. I could kind of connect people who are worried about AI and who are actually working on AI and don't really haven't been exposed to these arguments much. And I saw that there are reasonable people on both sides, so I kind of started doing things. I think the most thing that I'm most happy with was that I walked up to Demis Hassabis, who is the co-founder of DeepMind, like the most impressive AI company in the world, I would say. The company behind AlphaGo and AlphaZero and etc. And basically introduced myself and we started discussing. And now DeepMind has like a very good AI safety team, people who are kind of working full time on AI safety in London. So I ended up investing in DeepMind and became on the board of directors. And so until I was quite involved in DeepMind until they were sold to Google. So that's an example of like this bridge building. Still continue kind of flying around all over the world and trying to popularize this topic to see like if you can recruit more people and more institutes, etc. to this cause.
I mean, the long-term problem with AI is that if it eventually will be general AI and so intelligent that it can develop its own program and improve on itself. But if we look at like more today, like we've seen with the elections and Facebook and how like recommender systems just where they optimize, let's say YouTube, the algorithm optimizes for the viewer to keep watching as long as possible. So it kind of enforces this addictive behavior. If that's like one of the bigger issues we have today, what do you see in short term? Like what kind of problems can we see in maybe 5 years or something like that?
Yeah, I think there's like a sort of common denominator between short term and long term. It is the trade-off between competence and delegation, or competence and control rather. So like whenever you're delegating something to another person or to a machine, you are in some ways buying a little bit more competence when it comes to achieving the results that you want. On the other hand, you're giving up some control. So like, I mean, every kind of leader of a company knows that, right? And that's true in general. Like, and what humanity is in the process of right now is delegating more and more of human decisions to machines. And as a side effect of that, we are giving up control, more and more control. So, I mean, it's kind of unlikely. I mean, there was like this Facebook scandals that we have seen over the last couple of years. I mean, it's very unlikely that the same scandals would have happened if there were just like humans in charge of all the decisions. So like, I don't believe that Facebook has like kind of bad people there, but it's just like a situation where you're going to delegate in order to get more what you think you want by delegating to machines. You're getting more of that, but also you're getting all the side effects. So I think in short term, you're going to see like scandals like Facebook and more of those as the AI is going to kind of grab bigger and bigger pie of the future. But in the long run, yeah, we might end up accidentally delegating away things that actually we need to keep in order to survive on this planet, like control over the environment.
And like, since we're talking now here in March, when the Corona craze is like maybe at its peak, or at least very.
Oh, I don't think it's at peak. No way.
The craze or the.
I think it's probably it's possibly at the peak in China, but outside of China, I would be very surprised if it doesn't get like 1,000 times bigger.
Yeah, you might be right, but anyway, it's all over the news all the time. And I know that one other thing that you have been into is like global coordination, and this is a situation where like global coordination is very important. How do you think it has worked out today?
Actually, my previous call with someone who's kind of close to a government, and he's a friend of mine, and we're discussing about what seemed to be reasonable, like good things to do in this situation. And one of my points was that, like, yes, like not that we should kind of jeopardize any of the object level things that could be done. We should also like keep an eye on like, as somebody said, that like never let a good crisis go to waste. So like if this crisis could kind of be like a step towards unifying humanity a little bit, and kind of getting mechanisms and contacts and networks of people who can kind of jointly resolve crises across the borders, then that would be really useful property for the world to have once the next crisis comes. And it's obvious that it would be useful for like a next pandemic, right? But like other ways that we could have like a more general response mechanisms. So it's like I think it's valuable. I have like a sort of project on my list right now to think about this particular thing. How can we use this crisis to actually improve world's immune system, so to speak?
Yeah, so it could be positive in one sense that we get to practice this kind of behavior.
Yeah, someone I know, Eric Weinstein, who runs Steel Capital. I heard his podcast from last year or something, where he said that like everything about war is great except the unacceptable price, of course. But I think the thing is true. Like if there weren't like the unimaginable downside in terms of human suffering and human lives lost, like occasional wars are great because it kind of like it makes societies to focus on what's important and how to kind of how to do the right things as opposed to just zero-sum political pickering and demagoguery.
To end, I just noted that like Max Tegmark, who are also working with similar questions as you are, he also was a game developer in the beginning of his career.
And so was Demis, like very very kind of visibly. He used to run a games company, Demis Hassabis. yeah, that there seem to be like interesting common denominators among the people that I kind of correspond with, or like they seem to have been doing a bunch of games development. A lot of people got interested in physics. I mean, I have physics degree. Max obviously is a physics professor. Like Nick Bostrom, another famous Swede, he actually, as far as I know, has a physics degree. Stuart Russell, who is like the leading voice in academia in AI about AI safety. He's Oxford physicist, and so like a lot of physicists. Surprising amount of physicists, surprising amount of game developers, and yeah, I'm both.
But you don't have any ideas on why that is?
Very, very weak idea. One obvious thing to think about that both kind of is a common denominator between game developers and physicists is that they think in terms of reductionism. They think in terms of components that the world is composed of. And think about how the worlds could be, etc. Like most of people, like atoms is just something that chemists work with. But like to physicists and possibly to game developers, atoms are things that the world is made of, including people, to think about atoms. If something goes wrong with atoms, like people are not going to survive. I think that is an intuition that physicists definitely have. And I would say people who have kind of put together games pixel by pixel also would find this intuition appealing, not to mention true.
Okay, perfect. I think that's a good note to end on. So thanks a lot for the talk, Jaan. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, that was very fun. Thank you.